choices are like a boat moving through the water, and there's a wake behind that boat. And when someone has never piloted a boat and they don't know the implications of they're going really fast in the open waters and now they're coming into dock, and as they come into the harbor, they're going too fast. And because they're going too fast, they damage the boats that are docked. On that first experience, they can say, I didn't know that was going to happen. Now I've learned to slow down so that I don't actually have that wake behind me.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm JD Messenger, the Executive Director of the Do More Good movement, and welcome to the ROI of Why podcast, where we share knowledge and wisdom to educate, empower, and amplify doing well and doing good.
So, Rand, thanks for being here. And the big question is, why are you here? Why are you at this Do More Good conference?
Well, Jay Wilkinson is a friend and a fellow traveler, and he shared what was going on here in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the middle of everywhere. And I was intrigued by that frame. And as I dug into what this represented, 4 or 5 years ago, I just found myself drawn to the mission, the purpose, and the idea that Do More Good is actually a big tent that's creating access and a doorway into conscious capitalism, which is a organization that I'm very involved in, and 1% for the planet, and B Corp. And I was like, these are all my friends. Let's figure out what this organization's up to.
Why don't you tell our listeners and viewers who don't know anything about you, a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So in 1999, I started a leadership academy in Dallas, Texas, the Stagen Leadership Academy, and we work with mostly privately held, mid-sized businesses that want to do good in the world, that are purpose-driven.
And those exist.
Those exist, really? And they're out there.
In Dallas.
And so it's always so fun because people they assume, based on our curriculum and based on the way in which we've built out our programs, you must work with the West Coast and you must work with the East Coast. And the reality is we actually work in the heartland almost exclusively. Mm-hmm. And so heartland states from Illinois down into Kansas, down into Oklahoma, Texas, over to Louisiana, Alabama, Florida. And it's always a surprise. People are like, why would you be working in heartland states? And because the nature of our work is multi-decade, where we're not trying to engage for a quarter or a year, but the nature of what we do is multi-decade in its intention. And so to create those kinds of partnerships with our clients, we actually need to work with organizations that have the luxury of being able to say, I have an evergreen, as the owner of a business, I have an evergreen orientation and I have an indefinite time horizon. So most of our clients would fall in this kind of family business category. Mm-hmm. So they're second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and they're coming from a stewardship mentality as opposed to coming from a more traditional, I'm going to work in my business, then I'm going to build and sell.
Right.
So Jim Collins would have called this back in the 90s kind of a built to last mindset.
Right. We were talking about sustaining a legacy and what that means, and especially in the heartland.
Yeah.
So can you tell me more about how you started with this, where this idea came from?
Yeah, the idea of sustainability and for me personally was I grew up as an entrepreneur. So high school, I was doing entrepreneurial activities. I went to college at SMU in Dallas. I also started several businesses in school. And then when I graduated, I started another business that was an extension of what I did in college. So I published newspapers and magazines. And as a 23-year-old with 25 full-time employees, I didn't actually know much about leadership or management. So I just, I'm going to say it luck, I met an executive coach. And this was back in the early 1990s. And he worked with me for 8 years, every other week for 8 years. And I really experienced the benefit and the power of having an outside resource, having a counselor who had cumulative context. And so ultimately, when that business was sold by my investors, I didn't own the business. Even though I founded it, I no longer had control of the business, and my investors sold it. And that was a direct experience of like, I didn't enjoy the artificial choice to sell the business because my investors understandably wanted liquidity. And so that put me onto a path of saying, well, what do I want to do next? Oh, I want to get on the other side and actually experience the coaching and the advising role. And I wanted to do that with organizations that, I'll go back to, had the luxury of indefinite time horizons. So we don't work with private equity businesses. We don't work with public companies. We work with private organizations, lots of family businesses, founder businesses, and ESOPs, employee-owned businesses. And the nature of that work allows us to work not just in 1 year or 2 year or 3 year increments. We have clients that we've been working with continuously, uninterrupted, for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years,
Wow.
and even 25 years.
And the question I have is, obviously at the Do More Good movement, we care about doing well and balancing that with doing good. Do you think that it's a leading question, okay?
Yeah.
But the fact that you're not a publicly listed company, that you're a family organization and even maintain a legacy, does that instill a greater ethos to be more socially responsive with organizations?
So in our experience, when we work with organizations that are family businesses and founder businesses that have these long-term time horizons, they tend to also have a deep connection to their local communities or their regional communities. And so that's another attribute that we've really learned. It's not just that someone's long-term in their thinking, it's that they're long-term and they have some kind of deep connection to, and therefore caring about, where their business is based, the business market that they serve. And so it's the combination of a regional orientation with long-term horizon. And so a distributor, as an example, would be a really good profile of the kind of clients we like to work with. Because if you're a distributor of, let's say you're a beer distributor, or you're a John Deere distributor, those businesses are set up to have distribution partners from the manufacturer that are going to be focused on that part of the country. And what we find with large public companies, which we used to work with in the early days, they were disembodied at the C-suite, at the CEO and the executive team were disembodied from the markets that they served. And the idea of a corporation, like the body, the corpus, my experience was that the C-suite was completely disconnected from the body.
How do you have a business without a community?
Yeah, and you have a machine that is a profit-making machine, and it becomes a transaction.
That's
And becomes
inspiring.
well, if all you want to do is exploit and make money, that can be a approach, right? And so the idea of a capitalist who wants to use the platform which they're leading and running as a force for good in the world is really what draws me here to this community and what draws our clients to us. And one of the challenges we get from people regularly is people will often ask us, well, why won't you work with public companies? Well, what we have found is that we won't work with an organization unless the CEO leads the way. Leaders go first.
Top down.
Top down. If the CEO is not willing to be the executive sponsor and demonstrate to his or her employees that they're willing to do the very thing they're asking their executives or their organization to do, we simply pass and won't work with the company. So most of the public company CEOs that I know, and you know many of them that I'm in social relationships with, many of them are like, Rand, we want to hire you to go and fix our company. And I'll say, and I'll give you just a quick illustration of this. I'll ask the CEO of the public company, what is it that you want to resolve? What's the conflict? What's the issue? What's the problem you're trying to solve? And the CEO will say, as an example, we have silos in our company. 10,000 employees, silos in our company. And what do you want from us? Well, I hear great things about Stagen. I hear great things about your organization. You have a wonderful reputation. I want to hire you to go in and help break down those silos so that fix the employees so that our teams can be more collaborative. And I'm like, great. So let's do a root cause analysis of
Don't look at us.
what's downstream of the silo is the experience that you're pointing to. Okay. Now let's go upstream. The supervisors and the managers and directors you want us to go in and train, quote, train, they report to who? And then we'll do the root cause analysis. They report to the VPs, who report to the EVPs, who report to the C-suite. And in every case, I've never, not had this experience. The root cause of these cultural complaints from the CEO are actually beginning at the C-suite. And so if the CEO and his or her direct reports are siloed, the organization's going to be siloed.
What a crazy concept. Who would have thought that?
So let me ask you a question. How would you say Stagen leadership differs in your leadership approach to create change in the hearts and minds of your clients?
Yeah, so I mean, our differentiation, it starts with the idea of indefinite time horizon because we don't do training, we do development.
Right.
Training is important. It's skill oriented and it's needed now. Somebody joins a company, there's a CRM, customer relationship management system, and we want to train them on how to use the system. Or someone joins a retail store and they need to train on how to use the point of sale equipment. Training is really important.
Right.
We're not in the training business. We're not in the skill business. We're in the business of development, which is long-term. And development, human development, adult development, leadership development is a process that is continuous. And the real juice is 3, 5, 8, 10 years in.
Right.
That's where the real power comes. So the differentiation that we would have is we believe in the long-term arc of
but how do you peel the onion away? Okay.
Yep.
I mean, are you working on their inner game of thoughts and beliefs, their outer game of behaviors and actions, their values, virtues?
So in the conscious capitalism community, we talk about conscious leadership, and conscious leadership is an inside job.
Okay.
So the answer to your question is we start on the inside.
Okay.
And we always start with the CEO.
Right.
And we recognize that the CEO has to go first. And we believe that the only way to do the deep inner work in partnership with our clients is in a practice-based methodology. So we don't do events. We don't do 1-day events, 3-day events, 1-week events. We do practice like an athlete practices. If she wants to get better at her tennis game, she's got to practice. You want to get better at your golf game, you got to practice. You want to get better at playing the violin, you got to practice.
What do you practice?
And so we're practicing, and the practice is our requirement is the CEO does a 52-week, that's a 1-year program broken into 52 weeks of practice that are tracked and monitored every single week, paired up with an executive coach in peer groups. They fly to Dallas to our facility 1 day per quarter. And in between those quarterly workshops at a cohort level, they are practicing. And we are practicing everything from personal awareness to how to delegate, to how to manage energy, to how to deal with team dynamics, communication dynamics. I mean, it's a very broad range. We're intense. If we were a gym, we'd be a CrossFit box.
Right.
So we're not in the entertainment business.
Where do you find, what is the greatest challenge that the leader has to overcome?
Yeah, the greatest challenge that the leader has to overcome, because we specialize in working with very accomplished individuals. They don't come to us as startups.
Mm-hmm.
They come to us with a couple hundred employees to a couple thousand employees. Let's just call the mid-market, right? So a mid-market CEO who owns his or her business, who has a lot of economic success, they're not used to being told what to do, and they're not used to being confronted with their own limitations.
Or wrong.
Or being wrong. And so what we do is we basically say, it's the statement after decades of this work, people say, can you summarize like the big insight in just a simple and elegant way? And here it is. Leaders get the organization they deserve.
Ooh.
There it is. And that is
almost karma.
And that is like, people who are CEOs are like, I don't like that statement. And I'm like, well, if you don't like the performance of your organization and you're frustrated with the performance of your executive team, ask yourself who hired the executive team. Ask yourself, if you didn't hire the executive team and you're a new CEO, who's allowing the people on the executive team to stay in the roles that they're in?
Right.
Who's the one who's supposed to be providing the tools, the coaching, and the support to help them reach more of their potential and to win? And that's always going to go back to the CEO. As goes the consciousness of the CEO, so goes the consciousness of the executive team and then the entire organization.
I would suspect that somewhere in the transition during the 52 weeks, the leader gets confused, where their head has been telling them go left.
Yes.
And their heart is all of a sudden opening and telling them to go right. and they're like stuck like a deer in the headlight.
Yeah.
So assuming that's a correct assumption, how do you help them transition? And I assume maybe some don't make the transition.
Correct.
But how would you help them make that leap? Because it's a leap. It's a leap of faith, right?
We disillusion people at a rate they can handle.
Oh, I like that. Do you have pixie dust
So-
to
so-
help?
The nature of our work,
The rate thing, that was good.
the nature of our work is interventional.
Yeah.
So imagine that a leader is getting into a pool. We don't throw them in the deep end. We get into the shallow end. They step into their ankles on the steps, and then week after week after week, they continue in their practices until 6-8 months in, they can't touch the bottom of the pool anymore. And they have established a level of intimacy with their 20-person cohort. So transformation, in our experience, doesn't happen in isolation. It doesn't happen by ourselves. It happens with others.
Right.
And that can be a church group. It can be AA. It can be a leadership development program. But community is one of our design principles.
Right.
So 6+ months in, I'm feeling a sense of trust and intimacy with my peers. And I have a coach who's in that peer group who I've been working with. There's 2 coaches per cohort. 10 of the participants go with one coach, 10 goes with the other. So I'm working with my coach confidentially and individually in my own processing. Many of our coaches are psychologists, psychotherapists. We have a religious scholar on staff, W-2 full-time for 15 years, to be there as a counsel for those that are having some existential questions on, wait a second, the ground beneath me is shaking. I don't know. We're doing, to answer your question, we're not doing behavioral change work. We're actually working at the identity level.
Right.
And so, and you're pointing to that in your question.
Yes.
And I believe, is that,
Yeah.
and that idea of,
I call it your original download,
yes,
the socially imposed, culturally imposed, the imprint that came into you in utero,
yes,
where you then are starting to become disconnected every generation.
Yes.
We have a new OD born.
Yep.
And so, people are living and working with an OD that might be 30 or 60 years old, trying to deal with, Gen Zers. I mean,
Yep.
They just can't even see or hear it. And you're helping them. And I suspect you do some brain work, like you're helping them with the amygdala, frontal cortex,
Yeah.
breathing,
basic emotional intelligence. We teach,
and spiritual. It sounds like.
and we teach spiritual in the context of not religion, but in meaning.
Right.
To define spirituality as, if I'm a spiritual person, I feel a part of something bigger than myself.
Right.
And my ego's job, obviously, prime directive of the ego, is to convince me of my separateness. I am not a part of something bigger. I am just me.
Right.
And so when we get into our contracted reactive cells, our ego cells, that can be very limiting, and we're not as well resourced as we are when we're more expansive or more elevated.
How do you deal when whenever your identity is threatened? We go through an emotional sequence from denial, resistance, avoidance to then anger, resentment, hatred.
Sure.
So, assuming there's
Beautiful rainbow.
Yeah.
well, it's a natural, right? And we're conditioned unless something helps us and intervenes along that path.
Yeah.
How do you break
Do you?
through that?
Yeah, you must, as you're helping people realize their true, authentic selves.
Yeah.
There must be some emotional moments and maybe
Yeah.
some disturbing or difficult moments. How do you help them in that?
Well, that's why it's so important that this is not a weekend workshop, because it would be very irresponsible as a practitioner to put people into a destabilizing and confronting weekend and then say, see ya, okay?
Yeah.
So that 52-week,
We just erased your identity.
That's right.
It's like Men in Black. Do you have a flash stick? By the
boom,
way?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had a flash stick, this would be really easy,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
Right?
Yeah. And so the 52-week container, which is the beginning of a 10-year container. So when we're at our best in partnership with our clients, the 52-week integral leadership program, our flagship program, ends with a commencement ceremony, a diploma ceremony. They fly to Dallas from around the country with their spouses and their kids. And
Nice.
it's a full-on celebration.
Great.
A celebration to do what? To begin the next chapter. And we believe, using the hero's journey, which you may know the idea of Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey talks about the hero. Well, the beautiful part of the hero or heroine is that we are the hero or the main character of the story of our life.
Yeah.
So we're all the main characters. And then here's the question we confront our clients with. Who is writing the story of your life? And when we help them to recognize that they have been shaped, not just genetically how they came out, but in their early childhood environment, by their parents, by their communities, by their education, by their religion, they have been shaped in ways that are wonderful. And they have been shaped in ways that have limited them to reaching more of their potential. So we actually move from being socially defined to the idea of becoming the author of the story of our own life, which Bob Keegan from Harvard, we work with him and his material, he calls this a self-authoring level of leadership. So our move is to help all of our clients to grab more of the agency and to become the author of the story of her life or his life. And that is a very empowering, and it's a very intense experience.
Do you give them their own dragon talisman?
And so
Some kind of dagger or knife or something?
we actually have a graduate school, and the graduate program, the first year of the graduate program is actually called Navigating the Dragon's Gap.
Yeah, I have my Dragon Slayer dagger.
Yeah.
It's about a foot long, and when I need it, I take it out and I'm swinging it in the air, swiping any.
Where are you going
force.
with this dragon knife?
It's very important.
Okay, well, let's explain. Let's explain the dragon. Okay,
Tell her about
so
the dragon.
The dragon's
No,
coming.
this
this is a really
important.
cool history. Quick history here. So when the Europeans were charting the territory of Earth, they charted the land, and they would actually say, here's the different islands and the different coastal structures. And when there were parts of the ocean that had not yet been charted, uncharted territory, they would actually, on that part of the map, for the sailors that were going out, they would put pictures of dragons and serpents and monsters, and they would write the words, "Here be dragons." And what that would tell the sailors is that these waters are uncharted, hostile, and dangerous. Don't go there, because people who go there often never come back.
But if they don't know what's there,
So if our lives, if our comfort zone
okay.
is representative of the territory of our life that we've already charted, going outside of our charted territory is that threshold moment to move beyond our own direct experience. And it takes tremendous courage to leave one's comfort zone and go into the place of the dragons.
Is it human nature to believe that outside of your comfort zone is death and
Well, no,
terror?
natural fear. The unknown creates fear. I also think of the dragon from one other dimension, and that is the ego. Okay, and so you have to slay the ego
Yes.
within. And so,
Interesting.
there's an inner dragon and an outer dragon.
So is this a real dagger?
Yeah, it's a real dagger.
Like-
Chinese government gave it to me. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's
So imagine this. Imagine you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. You have been operating off of a winning formula about how to create value, how to have a business, how to have a career. You could be an artist, you could be a business person, doesn't matter, but we all have a winning formula. We all have a way of being in our life that eventually becomes a self-reinforcing loop of our success. And after decades of becoming intoxicated by the benefits of success, at least in our experience with our clients, we find them locked into the comfort zone.
That's building your own ego as well.
It
That's
is.
what I'm hearing.
And it's very simple. In our observations, there are only two ways or two reasons that someone is going to leave their comfort zone. They're going to be forced out. Someone is going to painfully, they're going to have a heart attack. Their spouse is going to leave them. They're going to be disrupted from a competitor. They're forced out of their comfort zone, or they choose out. But in the absence of being forced out or choosing out, almost everyone stays there. And so our work is ultimately awareness work. And what we have learned is that with awareness, I can choose out. Without awareness, only habituation. So with awareness, choice. Without awareness, habituation, reactivity. I'm asleep. The movie The Matrix. I'm just asleep. I'm in the Matrix. I'm on autopilot. And so grabbing my life and actually having the agency to step outside that comfort zone and go where the dragons are, it's wonderful. It's scary, but it's inspiring. But most people won't choose that on their own.
Yeah, I didn't choose it. I mean, mine took the near-death experience to rattle my existence and challenge my own identity.
Right. And honestly, that's, I would say, the easier of the two.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. No, it is not the easier
what I
of the
meant.
two, but it's the more radical, I mean, I spent 10 years trying to understand my identity.
Of course.
I wish I knew this man then, he
Right.
would have accelerated me at least 5 years or 8 years instead of
Maybe.
doing it on my own 10
Maybe.
years.
Being forced out when things are so uncomfortable that you have to leave the boiling water that you're in
Correct.
is, I think, I think that's the path most chosen besides
No.
choosing.
What do you think?
to
Do you
go.
think that's
Well, I want language is important here, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I don't think that when you're forced out, it's a choice. I think you're forced out.
Right.
And I do believe that most people never leave their comfort zone.
Right.
And those that do, the majority of them are forced out. It's
Right.
very rare to choose out.
And in my experience, which he confirmed, I think, being careful with words, you might change it. But what I have found is that once they begin the journey, it's easy to do inner thinking work. But once you have to move to the outer game and implementing it or changing the behavior, that requires a tremendous amount of faith and confidence and courage. And so putting it one way, it's easy to think about changing myself. But now when he's forcing me to go out and do it in real life, I get stuck.
And there's so many opportunities to quit and say, this is far enough.
Well, that's where his community comes in, right?
That's where the
got
community
support
comes in.
network.
Yeah. And I know we're going to be wrapping on time, but I also want to capture the idea of the responsibility that comes with leadership.
Right.
Because every leader is making choices on a day-to-day basis, and those choices are consequential. The way that we interact with our employees, we could be leading a department, we could be leading a whole company, but choices are consequential. And what we tell our clients is choices are like a boat moving through the water. And there's a wake behind that boat. And when someone has never piloted a boat and they don't know the implications of they're going really fast in the open waters and now they're coming into dock, and as they come into the harbor, they're going too fast. And because they're going too fast, they damage the boats that are docked. On that first experience, they can say, I didn't know that was going to happen. Now I've learned to slow down so that I don't actually have that wake behind me. Now, the power of this kind of awareness is that it goes in both directions. Once I'm aware of my wake, and our clients will become aware of the wake behind them with their children, with their employees, and they'll feel a sense of regret, and they'll actually make changes to show up differently tomorrow. But also, now that I understand that I have a wake behind me, I have a responsibility for choices that I have yet to make. It's one thing to take responsibility for the choice I already made, the wake, but now I have to be responsible for the choice I haven't yet made. And so it's now a two-way street. And this is the power of leadership is when I become aware and I can choose, then a responsibility comes online that is potent. And our clients feel a great sense of responsibility. And, ignorance is bliss, right? And as Gloria Steinem said, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? And so our clients would say, I would have never signed up to work with Stagen, to work with our Leadership Academy, had I actually known the experience that I was going to go through. But now that I've had the experience, I wouldn't give it up.
So let's wrap this up and bring it back to doing good and doing well.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, a somewhat leading question.
Yep.
But, when a person moves through the transformational journey they have their awakening, most people then realize, certainly in my particular life, that it wasn't about me, it was about we, that I found the most happiness, joy, and love by being of service to other people.
Yeah.
And I love helping people. If I'm not helping somebody, I start to get depressed. I got to go out and help somebody, So do you see that shift with your graduates, that they become more concerned about humanity and society and doing good?
We tend to attract people who are more inclined to want to do well and do good.
Intrinsically
They're
motivated.
intrinsically like, they can feel this. There's something that I want to become a better human being. What we do, which is a big emphasis of our approach.
Do you lock all the other ones out?
Okay, they don't want to work with us, right? They don't want to work with us, and we actually don't work with our business models. We don't work with the public. So if a CEO wants to go through one of our programs, then she has to find somebody who's a graduate of our program to nominate her. And if they don't know anyone, we'll use LinkedIn and technology, and we'll find a way to get them nominated, but we won't work with anyone just from the outside. And so we maintain a level of shared values and integrity with that. To answer your question around the experience of doing well and doing good, most leaders compartmentalize their lives unnecessarily. And they say, I've got my work life, I've got my family life, and I've got my personal life. And they don't realize the amount of energy that they're expending keeping those dimensions separate. It takes a lot of energy to keep things compartmentalized. And we help them Venn diagram. We help them recognize there's a way to integrate so that you're the same person all the time and you're not having to posture or pretend. So now let's go back to your question. Most of our clients believe that are oriented to serving the world. They want to make the world a better place. They want to do more good. They believe they need to sell their businesses, cash out, set up a philanthropy, invest in nonprofits. And while I think that's an actually important thing in society that people do that, it's a wildly inefficient way to deploy capital.
Yeah, right.
So let's get out of the mindset that capitalism is going to exploit and pull out. And then those who are more philanthropically service-oriented, doing good-oriented, then they'll find ways to put it back through nonprofits. That's not an efficient way to do it. Let's take the for-profit and the non-for-profit and integrate them together.
And that's a benefit company.
That's right.
Right. And I think of the greatest benefit companies are led by philanthropic capitalists. You know, they're not incongruent. I mean, these are old labels and identities and terms. Hey, listen, this has been absolutely fantastic. Love your knowledge and sharing. Really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
One quick question
Yes.
before we wrap.
Yes.
So you are an entrepreneur powerhouse. What was your first entrepreneuristic endeavor? Was it a lemonade stand? What was it?
Wow, you guys might actually put this on the if I give you the real answer. Yeah, so my first entrepreneurial endeavor was in probably 9th grade, 10th grade. We were just starting to have keg parties growing up. And it's like, well, who's going to get the keg and whose older, sibling is going to buy the keg? And then we're going to go to the woods. I lived in Connecticut and someone has to figure out how we're going to cover the cost. And so I was the guy who was selling the Dixie cup to everybody of saying, hey, you can have a red Solo cup to help pay for, I didn't necessarily make money, but at least it funded a keg party. So that was my first entrepreneurial endeavor, is a keg party.
There's one billionaire I know, and he started off by selling ice creams, pushing them around in a grocery cart on a beach when he was 14.
Yeah,
he made a lot of money selling those ice creams.
That's a more reputable early story than selling cups for the keg party in the woods.
Stagen selling beer in the bathroom.
That's right. That's how it all started.
Got that on you now, so it's been recorded. All right, thanks.
It was great to be with you guys. Thanks so much. All right,
Don't
appreciate
it.
it. Yep.
Thanks for listening to the ROI of Why podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night.